December 17th, 2021. I want you guys to think about that day. Where were you? Do you remember? It was a Friday, if that's helpful. You probably shouldn't remember. It was just a normal Friday, a week before Christmas, but I can tell you I remember it very, very vividly because for me, that day, December 17th, 2021, was my last day at Lemonly. And see, when I worked at Lemonly, I typically would come to work, I'd say probably 50% of the days, in my John uniform, which was a black t-shirt and jeans. And I'm so embarrassed that on this day, when I came to work, my head full of so many emotions, it took me almost 15 minutes to realize everybody else was wearing the John uniform. I was so embarrassed. It was finally I came in and put my stuff in the locker. I sat down, opened up my laptop. I had nothing to do that day. I was about ready to quit. And I was like, oh, they're all wearing the John uniform. Unfiltered, I guess. The reason why I was a little bit confused is my head was full of a lot of emotions that day. I was excited. It was joyous. We had achieved this big prize. We had sold the business, but it was also full of a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about what's next. So we celebrated that day. Of course, it was the holiday season, and then a few weeks later, it was January. My wife, Paige, went to work. I dropped the girls off at school. I came home and I sat there and I just asked myself, is this it? Now what? Right? Because all my entrepreneur friends, they say, this is the playbook, right? You start a business, you grow the business, and then you exit and you sell, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's the finish line. But then what? And I had no idea. So today, if you've ever asked yourself, is this it? Or maybe you've said to yourself, I feel stuck. Or maybe you've said, I'm not where I want to be. Maybe you thought you would be farther. You thought you would be a level up higher. Just the way you thought and designed your life doesn't quite look like it does today. And maybe it's great, but you just wanted more. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today because I believe that momentum is the best way to move you from where you are today to where you want to be. All right, so we're going to talk about the Making Momentum framework. Does that sound good? Yes or yes? Yeah, you have to say yes. All right, so Making Momentum, let's talk about it. There's 4 P's to Making Momentum. We're going to break them down. I have stories to unpack all of these P's, so let's go. The first one, potential. Now, you guys can all pass this. We can check the box and move forward really easily because this one simply asks, are you capable of more? Do you believe you can do more can you become a better version of yourself, whatever that applies to in your life, a mother, a father, a friend, a husband, a wife, an athlete, a salesperson, a marketer, a CEO, whatever it is, do you have potential for more? And I'm here to tell you the answer is yes, you do. And when I think about potential, there's one photo that really comes to mind, 2 gentlemen that I think if I were to go back in time on a time machine, they wouldn't even believe that I came from the future. And that's these 2 guys. One man was voted sexiest man alive. I don't know, whoever said that. And the other one is recently engaged to Taylor Swift. So we're talking about the Kelsey brothers. Guys, this photo is from 2010, only 15 years ago. If I could be there at football practice at the University of Cincinnati and show them what their life would look like in 2025, they would not believe me. There's no way. So when it comes to potential, we all have potential to be more. Just ask Jason Kelsey. When I think of potential for me, I think about this. Who knows what this is? Show of hands. Probably depends on your age, maybe where you grew up. This is a sit and reach machine, which now has become oddly politicized because we politicize everything. But essentially what you would do, you'd have to do the Presidential Fitness Award, and you'd sit down and you have to reach past your toes and to see how flexible you are. Now see, I was a high school hurdler, so I was decently limber, but not so much anymore. But I remember in PE class, this is spring of 2003, I'm a junior, and we have to do the sit and reach thing. And I get down and I do it, and I go 13 inches past my feet. And Coach Maffett, who's also the PE teacher, naturally, and the football coach, he comes over, he says, hey, Meyer, I think that's a sit and reach record. And so what I hear is, oh, hell yeah, let's put that shit in the banners. I'm going to tell my kids someday about how I have the Brookings High School sit and reach record. Hasn't gone over as well as I imagined it. And later in class, you had to do all the different things, right? You run the mile, and like for me, I always got hung up on those damn pull-ups. I mean, look at these arms. And so I could never become presidentially fit or whatever it's supposed to be. But we did the shuttle run. That's like the cones, and you do the agility to see how quick you can move. And it was track season, so I was pretty dialed up. And I had a good time. And I remember Coach Maffett said, "Hey, Meyer, I think you could go out for the football team with that time." So again, 17-year-old, single debate, choir, theater nerd kid was like, "Oh, hell yeah, I'm going out for the football team." Because in that weird kind of like entrepreneurial part of my brain, all I have to hear is one person say, "I think you could do this," and I think, "Let's go." Which that's a talk for another day, but I want you all to be that person for somebody. I think you can do this. You got this. So, a few months later, I'm entering my senior year, and naturally, I'm on the Brookings football team. And because I was like the 8th receiver on the depth chart, and because, I mean, let's look at how skinny these arms are, the skinniest arms to ever wear a set of football pads, I didn't see the field too often, but I was also a soccer player, so I got to be the kicker. And all of a sudden, this adventure unfolded of my fall of my senior year of being a Brookings High School Bobcat football player. And so there is no room that I don't believe I belong in. There's no opportunity or challenge that I don't feel like I can at least attempt. And that is potential. So if you all have that, we're ready to move forward, and we know that we're capable of more. The second P is path. Where are we going? Where are we going to harness this potential, and where are we going to point it toward? So I often think about life sometimes like this. It's like you come to a wooded forest, and you're like, which path do I go down? And I'm always really envious and jealous of the folks who are like, I knew from 5 years old that I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I love animals, and I went to school, and I became a vet, and now every day I go to work, and it like fills my cup. I'm so full of passion by being a vet. We know those people, right? I'm guessing since we're a room of sales and marketing executives, we probably aren't those people. Because I felt like my career path has been a little bit more winding, a little bit more pulled in different directions. And so here I was in January of 2022, and I chose to finish a path. I decided I had done everything I could do on that path. It was time for somebody else to carry the lemon leaf baton, and now I had to choose a new path. And this is where my story got kind of weird, let me tell you. So if you remember in 2021, the economy was doing a lot of weird things. It was kind of booming in lots of ways. Of course, tech stocks like today, but also like sneakers and baseball cards and Pokemon cards. And if you remember these, NFTs, pictures of JPEGs, right? So around this time, my lemon leaf responsibilities were fading as I was about ready to leave. And I decided, because as you do, to buy a picture of a rock. It's a nice, soft gray rock. There's only 100 of these ever made. And this one was number 87, Ether Rock number 87. I bought this JPEG for $20,000. And I remember texting my brothers in the group chat. I said, I bought this JPEG for $20K. It's either the luckiest or dumbest thing I've ever done. YOLO. 21 days later, I sold this thing for $1.1 million. And so life was kind of weird at that time, right? That you can build a business for 10 years, and then you can sell a JPEG in 3 weeks. And I didn't quite know what path to go on, but I figured, well, I better go down this path because it seems to be pretty lucrative. So all of a sudden, I told my wife, Paige, after I sold Lemonade, give me 6 months, I'll figure this thing out. And 6 weeks later, I'd started another business. They say entrepreneurship is a disease, and I don't have a cure for it. So all of a sudden, I'm going down this path, and I can tell you, it didn't quite end as excitingly as it started. Price of crypto went down. There was a lot of bad actors in this place, in the industry, creating kind of bad reputation. And it was very clear to me that I wasn't solving a problem, right? I coach my entrepreneurs. Is this a painkiller, or are you a vitamin? And my business idea was a vitamin. I figured if every business needed an infographic like Lemonly, then maybe every business needs an NFT. Well, here we are 3 years later, and I can tell you, they don't. So I shut down that business, that path closed, and I found myself right back to where I was, which is, I feel stuck. I'm not where I thought I would be. I'm so grateful because around that time, my friend Ashton up in North Dakota emailed me and said, "Have you ever thought about coaching?" And the answer was, no, I haven't thought about coaching. I had my own CEO coach at Lemonly, but I had never thought that I could do that. Who's going to listen to what I have to say? And so I started working with her agency and a couple other clients, and I started liking it, and I figured, maybe I could do this. And because entrepreneurship is a disease, I decided to give it a name, create a logo, incorporate a company, and all of a sudden, now I'm a coach, building a company called Lead More, which was named after my podcast, helping CEOs and entrepreneurs build great companies and not busy jobs. And that's what I do today. But again, I was pulled down this path in a way that I never thought I would be. So whatever your path looks like, whether it's perfectly designed like the veterinarian, or it might be a little winding with twists and turns and detours, we got to find the right path for you to use that potential. So now we're on the path, and I hope that you have a path that you feel excited about. How do you do that? One of the questions I always say is, what feels like work to everyone else, but not to you? That's a good indicator if you're on the right path. So we're on the right path, and now it's time to create pace. We got to move fast. The faster we move, the more we can experience. The faster we move, the more we can learn. The faster we move, we can get to our prize. And so this is pace. This is velocity. I love this word, this Japanese word called misogi. It basically means, loosely translated, like an event that sort of defines your calendar year. And a few people have adapted it to kind of take it as like the misogi challenge. What's the thing you're going to do this year? You put it on the calendar for 2026 that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, right? Get some butterflies in your stomach. That's your misogi. And so I've had this for the last couple of years. I hiked 29029, which is the equivalent of Mount Everest. I did the 75 hard challenge. I ran across the state of South Dakota for the 437 project. This year, my misogi is to write a book. Spoiler alert, it's about momentum. It's double spoiler alert, it's not going that well. I'll talk about why later. But last year, my misogi was to try to exercise every single day. 366 days, it was a leap year. And I'll tell you what, it was not a fitness goal. There was no here's what my heart rate needs to be, or how much I'm going to bench press, or my pace on the mile. It was simply, can I be the type of person who shows up every single day? Rain or shine, sickness or in health, traveling, or even when things are great and when things aren't great. So it was really about proving to myself I could be the type of person who does what he says he will do. And what I encourage you to consider is that you can take the power and the momentum from other aspects of your life, personal, professional, relationship, spiritual, and point that energy toward other aspects of your life. And I'll explain. So, January 1st, we're down in Phoenix visiting my in-laws. I go for a run, post a picture about it. On the 2nd, we fly home. So now it's cold as hell, of course. So I'm in the basement on the bike. And then the 3rd, and then the 4th, and then the 5th. And I'll tell you, these photos were not for anybody else. These photos were for me, proving that I could be the type of person, holding myself accountable. Because then it became February, which, hey, we can go outside again in South Dakota. And then it was St. Patrick's Day. And then it was 100 days. And the days just kind of blurred together. I remember Paige saying to me in probably February or March, when at 10 p.m., I was like, I got to go down and ride the bike. It's a busy day. I didn't get anything done yet. She's like, are you really going to do that? And somewhere around May or June, she just stopped asking, are you really going to do that? It became inevitable. That's momentum, right? Because then it was 300 days, and then on 366 days, in the exact same spot where I started, I went for a run and proved to myself I could become the type of person who does what he says he will do. The power of that will show up in every aspect of your life. You don't have to exercise every day. It can be whatever it means to you. But when you know that you can do what you say you will do, and you will honor that commitment, anything is possible. That's pace. And there's a few ways I want to show you today that we can create momentum. I call these the makers. So I'm going to give you some quick examples. So habits, that's that one right there. Do the thing every day, right? Create a habit. Easy. Accountability buddy. Many of those days, at Wednesday at 6 a.m. in McKinnon Park, you could find me, among others, going for a 3-mile run. You're all invited if you want to come tomorrow. At 6 a.m., we'll be there. And so whether it was cold or whether it was dark, I knew I had to be there because I knew Sarah was going to be there. Someone else was going to be there, right? That's the accountability buddy. Who can you text to say, I did the thing? Rewards. Got a good story about this. So late 2023, I kind of into fitness. I read all this stuff about these different trends, and I go to Paige, my wife, and I say, I think we should buy a sauna and put a sauna in the basement. And she said, why the hell do we need a sauna? Guys, if you've ever done this approach, let me offer you a suggestion. So I went back to the drawing board, and I said, it's the end of the year. So I said, hey, here is my goal for growing my business in 2024, right? Here's the revenue goal for Lead More in 2024. If I hit this goal, can I buy a sauna? She was like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. And I was happy to say by November 1st, hit the goal, bought a sauna. It's in the basement. I'm the only one who uses it. Rewards are a really powerful way to create extra incentive to create momentum, right? Use it. Use this power. We are wired psychologically for the dopamine hit. Give yourself the hit. Clarity. That's the 3 paths. Here's one of the biggest obstacles is deciding what you're actually going after, right? One of the things I coach my entrepreneurs, my CEOs, is most businesses die of indigestion and not starvation. We think we need more products, more services, more people, more offices, more things. I would venture to guess you likely need less and more of those less things, right? So get really crystal clear on what you need and what you're going after. Sprints. This is why things like 75 Hard or the Whole30 diet, why these things work, because they help you create not just consistency, but intensity, like rapid, condensed intensity to go after your goal and to make momentum. And lastly, identity. James Clear nailed this in his best-selling book, Atomic Habits. Basically, if you want to have the habit, you first have to adopt the identity, right? So if I'm going to exercise every day, it's like, what would an athlete do? I need to try to write this book right now. What would a writer do? They probably would write every single day, however many words that might be. Take the identity of the person you want to become, the habit and the other things will follow. So these are momentum makers, but now we got to watch out for these takers. So let me run through these. Distractions. This is a big one. If you're looking right now and you're thinking, okay, John, cool, how am I going to write an hour every day, or how am I going to exercise for 30 minutes every day? I offer you a suggestion. Likely, you can go to a setting in here called screen time, and I think you might be able to find your answer, right? So let's take away a distraction, let's buy back our time and create a little bit more space in our life. Distractions will take your momentum. Choices, this is a one in disguise. Sometimes having too many choices slows us down. I coach my entrepreneurs, right? A confused buyer never buys. The salespeople in the room know that. 3 options or less, right? If we give too many options, if we have overwhelmed by choice, the easiest answer is, I don't know, I'll get back to you. So let's eliminate all the choices. False goals, oh my gosh. Okay, so are you chasing your goal and your reward, or is it the Joneses, right? What do you want and why do you want it? Don't chase something for somebody else, because I guarantee when you get it, it's not going to be worth it when you're chasing somebody else's goal. Timeline. This one slices both ways. I'm suffering from this one right now. I said in 2024, I'm going to write a book. 2025, I'm going to write a book. Well, I didn't break that down. I didn't say, how many chapters by each month and how much each week. And so now it's like, oh, crap. There's not that many days left. I got to get this thing done. So we can suffer when timelines are too long, and we also sometimes suffer when timelines are too tight. When we come to the office on Monday and say, well, we got to get this done by noon on Wednesday. And you might sprint and you might go really hard, but if you don't get it done, you feel really disappointed, you feel like you failed, and is it really your best work? Right? So let's set timelines that are appropriate and aggressive at the same time, but really let timelines, make sure they don't work against you. Haters. Yes, haters are going to take your momentum. Let me tell you something about haters. Haters only come from the rearview mirror. No one ahead of you is going to be a hater. They want to support you. They want to cheer you on. They want to pull you forward. So what that means in translation is someone's opinion, a hater from behind, doesn't matter. So just get rid of it, move on. And the last one, arguably the biggest momentum taker, there's a book about this called The Comfort Crisis, is we're just too comfortable, right? I don't want to diminish anyone's situation or the problems that they face, but in 2025, the fact of the matter is most of us live pretty comfortable lives. And so to wake up every day and to forcibly make yourself uncomfortable is hard. And I would encourage you to try to seek out discomfort, at least every quarter, maybe every month. How do you measure that? Do you have butterflies in your stomach? When you look at your calendar that day, is there something that you're a little bit afraid to do, to give that presentation, to make that pitch, to ask for that raise? Then you're on the right track. This is pace. So what I encourage you to do, and I put this in the program, see where you can stack a couple of momentum makers. So for me right now with this books challenge, I'm going to do a sprint. I'm going to write every day for an hour, and when it's done, I'm going to text my buddy and say, it's done. That's accountability buddy mixed with a sprint. Where am I going to find that spot? Distractions, I'm going to eliminate that, and probably delete Instagram from my phone. Might be a good idea. So strike a taker, circle a couple makers, and figure out how to get some pace into your goals. So now that we have pace, what are we chasing? And I started this talk with a prize. So we went in circle here. There I was in January of 2022 asking myself, is this it? I feel stuck. I'm not sure where I want to be. But I felt like I had just achieved the prize. So now what? Well, the trick is that you got to start it over again. You now have new potential for a new level, for a new game, and you have to spin it around again. And so I was thinking about this as I prepared for this talk. It was very timely because in addition to being a coach right now, Olivia mentioned it, I get to have the honor of running a program called Leadership South Dakota. Any alumni in the room want to show of hands? A few? I can't quite see, but and I know I'll be joining Olivia next week in Pierre, where we kick off the 11th class of Leadership South Dakota. And so I get to travel the state of South Dakota to meet all the amazing, cool people that our state has to offer. And I'll tell you, as a kid who grew up in Brookings, I have fallen more and more in love with South Dakota. This is a really, truly special place. Here we were in Mission on the Rosebud tribe meeting some of the tribal leaders. And I think about this because 3 years ago at this time, I had just shut down that NFT business. Ashton had just asked, have you ever thought about coaching? And I think almost a week or two to the date, my friend and mentor, Rick Melmer, grabbed coffee with me and said, hey, I think you should apply for my job. And so what I want to tell you is your life can look drastically different in 3 years. And I would even argue 12 months, 365 days. So that is momentum. And I do this exercise, I call it your vivid vision. And I gave you space in the program to do this as well. I would challenge you, September 9th, 2028. What day is that? I don't know, it's 3 years from now. What does it look like? I would challenge you to describe it in vivid detail. Where do you wake up? Who do you wake up next to? Where do you go? Where do you go to work? Are you working? If you're working, where are you working? Who are you working with? What are you working on? And what do you do after work? The more detail, the better, right? Get really crystal clear because you might be chasing, it's okay to chase a prize of like, I want to make this much money, or I want to have this title, or I want to do this thing. But what you really want is the life, right? Not the thing. And so what does the life look like? Describe it as detailed as possible. That's the prize you're chasing, and then we can work backwards from there. All right, we've made it around. So we have potential, we have path. We've created pace to get to our goal as fast as possible, and we are knowing what we're seeking, which is the prize for us. So in your program, my 2 assignments for you were to, 1, determine your makers and takers, circle 2 of those makers, strike 1 of the takers, and then describe your vivid vision. Maybe you don't do it today, maybe do it tonight, tomorrow morning, whatever. Describe it and tell it to somebody in your life, your accountability buddy, maybe your partner, friend, sibling. Describe it to them. That's your homework. So the science definition of momentum, of course, is mass times velocity. I would translate that in my words to your mass is the best version of yourself. How big of a person, I'm not talking about pounds, but how can you become the best version of yourself? The 10.0 version of you that you're then meant to share with the world. That's your mass, and your velocity is then taking that person and running after the things that you want in life, because you only get one life. That's their definition of momentum. This is mine, and I want to finish with one more story. Speaking of prize, I just got back last week from doing a pretty epic adventure. I got to hike 130,000 steps with my dad and my two brothers on what's called the Camino de Santiago. So it is this hike. We went down dirt roads, we went down cobblestone villages, lush farmlands, busy city streets, rocky hillsides, and every day it felt like every step had its own story, right? And some of those stories will forever be burned in my memory, like a deep conversation with my 72-year-old dad, a quiet moment of reflection by myself with my thoughts, and maybe it was a postcard-worthy view in Spain. And see, that's a lot like life, where there's a lot of days that are so vivid that you remember, but most of those steps, honestly, kind of just blurred together, like the routine days of our life. So see, I just turned 40 recently, and I was doing the math, and I said, John, you've been alive on this planet for over 14,600 days. How many of those do you remember? Well, there's some core memories in there. The day I got married, the birth of my two girls, my last day at Lemonly. I could tell them to you in vivid detail. But most of those days, pretty ordinary, pretty unremarkable, pretty forgotten. Because see, that's how momentum works. It doesn't care how epic your day is. It only cares about, did you move forward? Because you're gonna have epic days that feel like 10x, where you break through and reach a new level. You're gonna have quiet days that feel slow and like nobody was watching. And honestly, I'm here to tell you, you're gonna have hard days where you're gonna think, is this worth it? But whether you're building a lifestyle or building a business or building a legacy, momentum doesn't care how epic the day is. Momentum just wants you to move forward. Because see, you can't build a business without the first customer. You can't lose 20 pounds without lacing up your shoes. And I know you can't take 130,000 steps without taking the first one. Because I can tell you every day, that first step was really hard, really sore. So Sioux Falls, this is what I want to leave you with today is, how are you going to create momentum? How can you point your momentum forward to the thing that you want? Because all it takes is one step at a time. So I urge you today to go out and take that step, and then tomorrow, take the step again. Because see, momentum isn't going to happen all at once. It doesn't work only when things are perfect, but it just works one step at a time. So thank you, Sioux Falls. I hope we have an incredible day today here at SME, and I can't wait to see where your momentum takes you. If you want more thoughts on momentum, I do a newsletter called the Momentum Monday that hits inboxes every Monday. But I just want to say, have an awesome day. Thanks for having me.